Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you chose to spend some time here. I want to thank every one of you who have written reviews for the show. One listener writes, "Now that was sweet girl time. Every time I listen to the Girls Talking Life podcast, I walk away with this feeling of having been spoken into. It's like I just had sweet girl time with a new friend. Johanna's style is inspiring and encouraging. I will definitely keep sharing this podcast with my family and friends." Thank you so much for your kind words. Not only does that fuel me to keep doing this work, but it also helps other women find us and listen along and get their girl time too. Next, I wanted to let you know about the free downloadable conversation cards you can get by signing up for the Girls Talking Life newsletter. I am an introvert, and while I love people, I don't always do a good job at getting the conversation going. So a while ago, way before this podcast, I went looking for conversation cards to use at a girls' night I was hosting. I couldn't find anything I liked. Nothing really reflected me or my friends well, so I created my own. I cut them out and I pasted them on a pretty paper, and they were a big hit. And they sparked some great conversations and lots of laughs. As you host events this winter, or if your small group is just getting started, grab a set of these conversation cards so you can get talking too. Go to girlstalkinglife.com to sign up. Today is the second episode of our Women's Wellness series. If you missed my conversation with Kara Osborne, be sure to go back and listen to all the good things that she has to share about living well for God's glory. Today, I'm sitting down with Julie Short, 8, wing 7. She's talking with me, a 9, wing 1, all about the Enneagram. Julie is a higher ed professional, co-host of the Momnesia podcast, and is on her way to becoming a Narrative Enneagram Teacher. If you aren't familiar with the Enneagram yet, it is a super useful tool, first for self-awareness and discovery, and then for relating to others. Within each type or number, there are levels of development ranging from unhealthy to average to healthy. And in the spirit of our wellness series, Julie is talking to us about how to move toward health in our numbers. Julie starts off by explaining the narrative tradition of the Enneagram. She walks us through each number and gives us actionable steps to take to move toward health. She also gives us suggestions of how to support the people in our lives in their number. Julie tells us how powerful this tool has been in her life and how she believes it even saved her marriage. Julie is a lot of fun, and I know you're going to love her 8-ness. Everything we talk about can be found in the show notes for today's episode on girlstalkinglife.com. Here is my conversation with Julie. Julie, thanks so much for coming on Girls Talking Life.
Thank you so much for having me, Johanna. I'm so glad to be here with you.
I'm excited to talk with you. And first, I just want you to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Julie Short, and since I'm here to chat a little bit about the Enneagram, I will tell you that I identify as an 8 wing 7, which is sometimes called the independent. And while I am an independent, I'm not alone. I have my hubby, Colin, who we've been married for 17, going on 18 years in February.
Nice.
And I have 2 children, Mary Kate, she is 10 years old, and Matthew, who is 7. And we live in Anderson, Indiana, which is my husband's hometown. This is where he grew up. I grew up in Arizona and Ohio, but we moved back to Indiana. This is where I went to college. That's how I met Colin. Just right when Mary Kate was born. She was 6 weeks old, and we moved back from Arizona. So we've been here for over 10 years now.
Nice. And where in Ohio did you live?
I lived in Dayton, Ohio. Well, a suburb of Dayton, Englewood, Ohio. My dad was the pastor at Salem Church of God, which is right off 70. So if you ever do any traveling between Ohio and Indiana, you usually pass it. It's right there on the freeway. It kind of looks like a spaceship.
Okay.
People recognize it. So yeah, that's where I was like for middle school and high school years.
Very nice.
Yeah. I am a working mom. 8 wing 7s typically have a very entrepreneurial spirit and have multiple irons in the fire, and I definitely fit that description. My full-time job is working in the Career Center as the associate director at Ball State University, which is in Muncie, Indiana. I've spent the majority of my professional career in higher ed, and I really love working on a college campus. There's so much fun energy, always something new going on.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I don't have much FaceTime with students anymore. I now manage more of a professional team, and we focus on data and reporting, technology and marketing on behalf of the Career Center. And you work in higher ed too.
I sure do. Yeah. I'm a higher ed professional too. I work part-time, so just 20 hours a week for me. But I am a systems analyst for the registrar's office for CWRU in Cleveland.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very fun.
And when I was in grad school, you take all the different classes, and I really thought that I wanted to go into career counseling or academic advising.
Yes.
Because I just loved the personality assessments and the occupational tests that you would take, and to think that this is my personality type and maybe these occupations would be good for me, and just seeing those connections made was so interesting to me. So I didn't actually go into one of those areas, but those tests have intrigued me the whole way since college.
Yes, me too. I was a psych undergrad and definitely loved personality theory, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So when the Enneagram came around a few years ago, when I became aware of it, I was just like, yes, I am in. I want to learn all about this. It is so interesting.
Me too. Me too. I do. Before we dive into the Enneagram, though, do you care if I share a little bit about Momnesia? Because that's the other thing.
Oh, yes. Please tell me about your podcast.
Yes, I am a fellow podcaster as well. So we have lots of things in common here. I have a podcast called Momnesia. And Momnesia is a place where we tell stories we want to remember and the ones we wish we could forget. And I'm obsessed with podcasts in general.
Yep, me too.
I'm really drawn to ones that share personal, in-depth stories, kind of like Serial and Invisibilia, This American Life, On Being, all those good ones. And so I listened to them on my commute every day and would find myself like sitting in the car even after I got home in the garage, just like waiting for that story to end to find out what happened next. Yeah. So I knew that when my friend Sarah, who's the co-host of Momnesia, suggested that we start one, I knew that I wanted it to be something like that, something narrative in nature and sharing stories. Because I feel like we can learn so much about ourselves and others when we stop and we listen.
I completely agree.
With an open heart and mind. So we're in the middle of our second season. We celebrated our first anniversary this past November. You can find us on all your favorite podcast listening apps. And we'd love for you to subscribe. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram.
You and Sarah have a great chemistry. You always do a little catch up and what's going on before you interview your guests, which is so, so cute.
We do, because we're good friends, but we hardly ever get to see each other. So it is a bit selfish in that we use it to catch up and spend time together.
It works.
Yes. I was drawn to your podcast because of your social media.
Really?
You do such a good job. It is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. So kudos to you. Love your podcast. Love your social media. You do a great job.
Love yours too.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, so let's dive into the Enneagram. About 2 years ago, my sister introduced me to the book, The Road Back to You, by Ian Morgan Cron and Suzanne Stable.
Yes.
Stabile, I think
mm-hmm.
how you pronounce it. Yeah. As I said, I was a psychology major undergrad, and then I was always fascinated by personality theory. And then I went on to Fuller Seminary and got my master's in theology. And so the Enneagram was like right up my alley. It hit those 2 points that I love, faith and spirituality as well as psychology. So it was a perfect fit in an area of interest. And I just immediately began to inhale anything I could get my hands on that was Enneagram. So just, reading and podcasts, and there's tons of fun social media stuff. Instagram in particular has lots of good stuff. So since it is kind of big in these Christian circles right now and in pop culture, I'm assuming that the majority of your listeners may have like a basic understanding of what it is and may even have a type that they identify with. But for those of you who don't know it, it is basically a a personality typing system where there's 9 archetypes. And once you're able to identify which archetype you lead with, then that can help kind of open up some self-knowledge and understanding. I am in the process right now of going through a certification program with the Narrative Enneagram. It's a training program that started back in the 80s by Helen Palmer and David Daniels at Stanford.
Okay.
And the current program is based out of Palo Alto in California, but they also have training sites in Denver, Colorado, Cincinnati, Ohio, and then they just started in Nashville. So my end goal with this would be to, be an Enneagram teacher or coach and work with executives in a corporate audience, kind of sharing about how professional development and high functioning, healthy teams can make it a better workplace. So that's a lot of what we do here in the Career Center. So it feels like a good connecting point. And thankfully I have an awesome boss who is willing to let me kind of explore this area.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
I'm super excited about that. But definitely, like I shared with you before, I am not an expert. I'm still learning, and the majority of the information that I'm going to share today has come just through my own personal reading, as well as some of the training material that was provided through the Narrative Enneagram program. So It's already made a huge difference in my life. And
yeah, tell me about how it's impacted you personally.
Yeah, when my sister first gave this to me, and I can still remember us sitting on her couch in Nashville, and we're reading through all of these things. You can take an online assessment, and that's usually a good starting point. But I would encourage people don't finish with just the online test, because
that's what I did. I got started with the test, but then I read into it and kind of decided if that was really true of me.
Exactly. So the online test that you can take, if you just Google free Enneagram test, it's accurate about 70% of the time. And like I said, it identifies your top 3 numbers that you would most likely be, but don't assume just because the top number that you scored the most. With any type of personality testing, sometimes we can alter the results because how we want people to perceive us or how we want to perceive ourselves.
I know for me too, I would answer differently if I was in a work environment versus a home environment.
Yes, exactly.
So that can put a spin on it.
Exactly. And the number that I came out with on top was 3, which is the performer or the achiever. And I was like, yeah, that's how I want to be. I want to be the achiever. I loved all the people that they lined up with the 3s. But, my second number was an 8. And I read the 8 and I was like, ooh, I don't want to be an 8. An 8 is like Saddam Hussein and
you don't want to put yourself in that category?
Cuba, like all these dictators. And I was like, ooh, I do not want to be that. So I'm definitely a 3. But when I was with my sister and reading these things, she's like, Julie, you are not a 3. You are an 8. And I did not want to accept that. And it wasn't until we had a woman actually come to our office for like a group training type of thing. And we did this as a team. And I was like, I want to identify as a 3, but I think I'm an 8, but I'm not exactly sure. And so she told me about like the centers of intelligence and how those are split up. And I realized that the 3 would fall into the feelings center or the heart center. And I am not a feeler. 8s fall into the body or gut triad. And I'm definitely more of a gut instinct type of gal. And the other part of it was, the heart feelers, they do more of shame, and the head centers do more anger and rage. And I'm definitely an anger and rage person. So that really did kind of solidify for me that I do lead with an 8.
While you're talking about the centers, can you briefly talk about who is in each one?
Yes, I will definitely do that. Before we do that, okay. I do want to give some ground rules as well, because it is so easy with this type of thing, especially when it is pop culture, for us to, one, type others, or to be like, oh, you're such a 9, Johanna. And those are not nice things to do. So when you are talking about the Enneagram, you definitely want to make sure that you never tell people their type. You want to help them discover their type on their own, even if you are like really sure you know what their type is. You also want to avoid stereotyping. Each of us is a unique individual expression of our own type. That was one thing that became really clear in our training. So the training that I went through the Narrative Enneagram program, they teach in a really unique method. The narrative method promotes an online exploration of types. And they do that by listening to representatives of each Enneagram type, and they share their story and kind of reveal their inner world and realities. And so we're able to discover the differences even within type. So it was a really cool thing. The teachers have like this specific inquiry method that helps people demonstrate their type and their struggles and strengths and all that good stuff. So the different types teach us about themselves as we explore our own type as well. So even though I had a lot of cognitive knowledge going into this training, I feel like I didn't have just more knowledge at the end of it. I had more wisdom and like more experience with the Enneagram. So avoid stereotyping. I'm telling you, even all the 4s out there, there's unique 4s within 4s. And I know they like to be unique. So, okay, sorry. So avoid stereotyping. Don't make excuses or find fault for behavior based on your type. Refrain from using your type as justification for your actions.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I always get on my hubby for that one. Like, you can't just say you're moody just because you're a 4. So yeah, don't use it as justification. And then this is a good one for me. When you have a negative reaction to another type, investigate your own reactivity to it. Don't assume that the problem is with the other person. You may begin to notice that as you interact with other types, there might be certain types that bring up specific emotions for you. So start to examine, okay, not what's wrong with all the 4s. Why is this bothering me? And then recognize that working with the Enneagram requires time, effort, and commitment. It's not going to happen just by scrolling through your Instagram feed and seeing funny memes. Like, if you really want to use this as a tool for transformation, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of energy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about those centers of intelligence. The first one is the heart type 2, 3, and 4. If you are a heart center type, you tend to perceive the world through the filter of emotional intelligence. So EQ, I know that's another fun buzzword a lot right now. You are like tuned into the mood and the feelings of others in the room, and you try to meet the needs of your friends for your own approval. You depend more than other types upon recognition of others to support your own self-esteem and fulfill your desire for love and connection. To assure that you receive the approval and recognition, you create an image of yourself that will get others to accept you and see you as special. So those are the heart types, the feeling types. The next is the head center, and those are types 5, 6, and 7. If you're a head type, you tend to filter the world through your mental faculties. The goal of this strategy is to minimize anxiety, to manage potentially painful situations, and to gain a sense of certainty through the mental process of analyzing, envisioning, imagining, and planning. So those are the
not
head
me.
types. Okay. And then the next, this is me and you, the body center. If you're a body center type, you tend to filter the world through an intelligence of kinesthetic or physical sensations. So kind of like those gut instincts. You use your personal position and power to make life the way it should be. You devise strategies that assure your place in the world and minimize discomfort. I don't know about you, but I always cringe a little when I hear about myself.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think it's important to point out that you're a little bit of everything, every number.
That's exactly what I'm going to talk about.
Okay, great.
Yes. So the dynamics. Well, you more than others as a 9 are a bit of everything. But it is a dynamic system. And so it does account for changes in your circumstances. Each point can relate to other points on the Enneagram, on that circle. And it occurs kind of two different ways. Wings. Have you heard people talk about their wings before? I said, I'm a wing 7.
Yes, I believe I am a wing 1.
Okay. So wings are the 2 points adjacent to the type around the edges of the circle. So for me as an 8, I can have a wing 9 or a wing 7. I've heard sometimes people say, oh, I'm an 8 with a wing 5 or an 8 with a wing 2. You can't have a wing that is across the circle from you.
Yeah.
So know that if you have a wing, that means it's on either side of your number. That kind of gives like flavor to your number, and you do have access to it. So sometimes as a 9, if you need to take charge and get things done, you can lean into that 8 that's on your side. So keep that in mind. And then the other part is the lines, and the lines point to 2 other points. And the movement along that line describes what typically happens when we're under stress or we're feeling comfortable. So your stress point is the personality type you shift to when you're feeling stressed or pressured, or when you're mobilizing for action. Your security point is where your personality shifts when you feel relaxed or secure, or even sometimes like when you feel overwhelmed or exhausted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when you shift to your stress or security type, you may show the higher qualities or the lower qualities of that type depending on your circumstances. You also have access to those higher energies like when you do it intentionally. So for instance, since I'm an 8, I go to 2 in security. Now that doesn't mean that I'm going to look like my best friend who is a 2. But when I become more generous and giving, when I'm using my strength and my direct nature in a healthy way, some of my friends, they jokingly call me Pastor Julie. They say I take on more of like a pastoral nature, but I don't look like a typical 2, but I take on some of those higher qualities. So once again, it kind of gives you access to things that are around the circle. So you're not just leading with that one type only. So for you, do you know where you go in stress and security?
I've looked at this before, but no, I can't tell you.
Okay. In security, you go to 3, which is the achiever. And in stress, you go to 6, which is the loyal skeptic. So those are some areas that I would encourage you to kind of read more into and kind of find out what are those higher qualities of both of those numbers, so that when you encounter a situation that would call for some of those strengths, you can lean into those things.
So does that mean in stress, do I go to the lower qualities of a 6?
Well, yes, you could go to the lower qualities of the 6 when you're feeling stressed out. Yep.
Okay. And since we're talking about higher and lower qualities, I have some information on 9s and 8s to pick on us both.
Oh, good. Let's hear it.
So at their worst, 9s are spaced out, forgetful, stubborn, obsessive, apathetic, passive-aggressive, judgmental, and unassertive. But on the flip side, at their best, they're pleasant, peaceful, generous, patient, receptive, diplomatic, open-minded, and empathetic. And not to leave you out.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
8s at their worst are controlling, rebellious, insensitive, domineering, self-centered, skeptical, aggressive. But at their best, direct, authoritative, loyal, energetic, protective, and self-confident.
Yes.
So there's a very wide range of...
There are. And I don't know about for you, but even some of those things that are considered those higher qualities, especially, I think you'll read a lot in books. It's hard to be a female 8 because even those higher qualities in females are sometimes seen as negative.
Really?
Yes. Usually when you find a female who is direct and what were some of those other ones you said again? Authoritative,
loyal, energetic.
Yeah. Those
protective.
Women are usually described with the B word.
I love that you're direct. I mean, self-confidence, energetic. I would love to be more energetic. There's really good things in there.
I know there are. And like I said, it has taken me a lot of time to sit with that. It's been 2 years where I've been sitting with that and coming to really accept that as my strengths, I guess. I think because it has been used in ways that have been hurtful in the past, that at first it really was hard for me to accept. But I definitely am direct and strong and energetic. Like they do describe me. And now I'm able to kind of embrace those in a way that make me feel proud or confident or are happy that this is the way that I'm wired. But yeah, so it takes some time.
Hey there, I'm going to interrupt for just a minute to let you know about today's sponsor. Pure Haven is the maker of fresh, safe, personal home and care products. Their mission is to educate consumers about pure, safe, alternative, personal care choices that empower people to live the healthiest lifestyle possible. Their products are 100% free of toxins, guaranteed. I've been using Pure Haven products for a little over 5 years now, and I love that I can use their products on myself and my kids without worrying about the ingredients. I learned about Pure Haven from my friend Jessica, who was a guest all the way back on episode 10. She shares her story of making the switch to healthier products for her family. You should definitely go give that episode a listen. If you are wanting to make safer product choices this year, I highly recommend Pure Haven. I know it can be overwhelming to know where to start, so my advice is to just pick one product, and then you continue to replace things one at a time as you run out of what you're already using. That's how I did it. I started with their Dream Cream because it is a great smelling multi-purpose skin cream, and who doesn't want that? And then next, when I ran out of my secret deodorant, I switched to Pure Haven. And just like that, little by little, I've been able to stock my home with safe, non-toxic products. Go to purehaven.com/girlstalkinglife to view their whole line and to shop. Use code 256844 to support the show during the month of January. Now back to my conversation with Julie. Well, my point is that there's a low side and a high side to each number.
Exactly.
And since we're talking about wellness today, I wanted to talk about moving from, as a 9, someone who's apathetic, to someone who's pleasant and more assertive.
Yes. Let's do that for each of the types.
Yeah, I would love to hear that. How can we move toward health in each number?
Okay. So we're going to start with the perfectionist, and I'll just kind of read like a brief description. And then I'm going to give you like 2 or 3 things that maybe in this new year that you can work on.
Perfect.
And just as a reminder, what the Enneagram does, I'm gonna read this quote. I love Beatrice Chestnut. Once you find yourself in one of these types by matching what you observe yourself doing to one of the Enneagram personalities, you gain access to a large amount of information that can help you recognize and understand the patterns in your thoughts, emotions, and action. Beginning to understand your personality type allows you to better notice your personality patterns as they are happening, to catch yourself in the act more often, and release yourself from being trapped by choosing not to remain in those unconscious patterns. I know a lot of people sometimes may be resistant to personality types because they feel like it puts them in a box.
Yeah.
And what the Enneagram does, it shows you the box that you're already in, and then gives you some tools to get out of that box and to become more of who you truly are. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about now. I'm going to tell you about each type and then give you some suggestions on how you may begin to ease your way out of that box that you're in, those habitual patterns. Okay, let's get started with 1, the perfectionist. The perfectionist believes you must be good and right to be worthy. Consequently, perfectionists are conscientious, responsible, improvement-oriented, and self-controlled, but also can be critical, resentful, and self-judging. So if you identify as a type 1, here are a few things that you could do for some self-development. Make little mistakes deliberately, such as not making your bed. I'm sure for some type 1s out there, just even thinking about not making their bed in the morning makes them cringe a little. But that is one thing that you could choose to do to move towards some health. Practice acceptance and forgiveness rather than improvement. 1s love to improve, and the thought of not being perfect can sometimes be overwhelming. Reconnect with your mind and body through meditation and breathing. So those are some ways that 1s can get started in this new year. And I also have something that we can do to help love and support the 1s in our life.
Okay.
Let a 1 know that he or she is lovable, though imperfect. So let them know that you love them even when they aren't at their best.
That's great.
Okay, number 2. Do you have any 2s in your life?
I do, yeah.
The 2, they are the giver. And the giver believes you must give fully to others to be loved. Consequently, givers are caring, helpful, supportive, and relationship-oriented, but they can also be prideful, overly intrusive, and demanding. So if you are a 2 and you're looking for some ways to grow, here are a few strategies. Practice giving without anyone knowing. Reflect on what it would be like if no one needed you. That's a crazy thought.
Yeah, that's hard for me, and I'm not a 2.
I know. And then the last one is ask for something you need once a day. They have a hard time asking for their own needs, even though they're willing to go way above and beyond to fill everybody else's. And if you have a 2 in your life, here's one way that you can support them. Stay constant and provide steadiness, paying attention to the 2's real needs. They are not going to ask you for help. They are not going to ask you for what they need, unless they're working on it, like we're encouraging them to.
Right.
But that is a way that you can show them that you love them, is by to meet their needs as well. Okay, next is 3, the performer. So this is where you go in strength. The performer believes you must accomplish and succeed to be loved. Consequently, performers are industrious, fast-paced, and focused on goals and efficiency. They also can be inattentive to feelings, they can be impatient, and they can be image-driven. So if you are a 3, here's some things you can do. You can welcome and appreciate feelings, realizing that doubt and anxiety often arise first. So I know some friends, and I'm one of them too. I'm not great with feelings. I'm either anxious or angry, or like I don't have a lot of feelings to even name. So I have one friend who like printed out like a feelings chart or like words, so that you can look at them and start to identify, okay, what is this feeling? And usually it's going to be doubt or anxiety that comes up first, but stick with it. Like stay in that moment, stay in that feeling.
Feel it.
Yeah. And figure out what it is. And then once again, so this is the next one, practice saying how you feel out loud. Like you might feel silly, but just saying, I'm happy, I'm joyful, I'm like, just practice saying it in the moment. And then begin to notice that your anger is associated with obstructions to goals and accomplishments. So you probably get angry when someone is standing in the way of you finishing a task or checking off your list or any of those things. So start to notice when that anger rises. Do you notice that at all?
I do.
Yep.
I don't like to admit that, but yes.
So here's one way that we can support our 3s. Let the 3 know that you care regardless of his or her accomplishments. Once again, loving them no matter what.
This is something really weird that I do, but some days when I just have a busy day and got a lot of things done, and I will sit at the end of the day and run through the accomplishments with my husband, and he'll be like, why do you feel the need to tell me all this? And maybe that's why. That is why you want him to know that you that your worth is in that you got a lot of stuff done. But that's not true. Your worth is not in that, Johanna. Even if you got nothing done, you would still be worthy. Okay, number 4, the romantic. The romantic believes that you must obtain the ideal relationship or situation to be loved. Consequently, romantics are idealistic, deeply feeling, empathetic, and authentic, but also dramatic, moody, and sometimes self-absorbed. So if you have a 4 in your life, here are some strategies for self-development. Focus on what is present and what is, rather than what is missing. Each of the types have an orientation towards time. So as an 8, I'm forward-oriented, I'm future-oriented, and as 4s, they are past-oriented. So they're always thinking about how great it was in the past and how it's not great now. And so they may be focusing a lot on what is not happening at the moment. And one way that they can start to get out of that box is to focus on what is present in the moment. And just, once again, through those breathing exercises, things like that, meditation, learning how to be present in your body is really helpful for 4s. And then once again, another thing for your body here, use physical exercise to get into the body. So they are so often this like imaginary land that
in order to be present, sometimes exercise will really help to be present in their body. Be aware of your tendency to become self-absorbed and how this blocks being present for yourself and others. Here's how we can support the 4s in our life. We can stay steady when the 4's feelings are very intense. So just once again, remaining that steady presence is helpful. Okay, 5s.
My husband is a 5.
You're
anxious to hear what you say here.
Okay.
Yeah.
5 is the observer. This is where I go in stress, and I definitely identify with a lot of this. The observer believes you must protect yourself from a world that demands too much and gives too little to assure life. Consequently, observers seek self-sufficiency and are non-demanding, analytic, thoughtful, and unobtrusive, but can also be withholding, detached, and overly private. So here are some things that they can work on. They can stay present and engaged with others. They can practice self-disclosure. They can behave as if there were abundance. Stay present as possible in each moment. Do body work. So like yoga is really good for 5s. And identify cues that are withdrawing you into your mind. So they will typically kind of sit on the outside and look in. And so whatever they can do to remain present in the moment is going to be really helpful. And one way that you can support a 5 is you can respect the 5's need for privacy, understanding that this is not rejection. Sometimes it's easy to feel that because they aren't as open, that means that it is a rejection, but know that that is not the case, that they really do value their privacy. Okay, 6, the loyal skeptic. The loyal skeptic believes you must gain certainty and security in a hazardous world that you just can't trust. Consequently, loyal skeptics are themselves trustworthy, inquisitive, good friend, and questioning, but also can be overly doubtful, accusatory, and fearful. So you do something in 6. Is that where you go in health or in stress?
That is stress.
Stress, okay. So strategies for development. Relinquish the quest for certainty and control as a substitute for faith. That can be hard.
Yes.
Take action before you are fully prepared. So 6s are great on a team, especially like if you're starting something new, because they can always think of all of the things that could go wrong. And then they make a really specific, diligent plan for each one of those scenarios. And a lot of times aren't willing to take action until they've thought through every single one of those. So one thing that you can do, 6s, is you can take action before you are fully prepared. They could work by engaging in pleasurable activities. I think I would love that one to be on my list. Do physical exercises to move energy out of your head. I know for me, I do that when I walk or run at lunch. Like it's helpful to just kind of get all those thoughts out. And then develop the belly center, kind of that gut, through meditation and self-observation practices. How you can help 6s. You can be consistent and trustworthy, and you can disclose your own personal thoughts and feelings.
Those are good. Thank you. I have a friend who's a 6, I think. I'm not going to type her. But I just saw her recently, and that all sounds very relatable to her. So
Yes.
Yeah.
7s, the epicure. The epicure believes that you must keep life up and open to assure a good life. Consequently, epicures seek possibilities and pleasure and are optimistic, upbeat, and adventurous, but they also avoid pain and can be uncommitted and self-serving. So Epicure is like Epicurus, the old philosopher back in the day, and I believe he believed the truest good was to live a pleasurable life. And so that's where that comes from. I have a very strong wing 7, and I have to keep that in check sometimes. So one thing for 7s, work on one thing at a time and finish what you start. My friend Kaylee, I think she will be okay with me sharing this. Hey, Kaylee. She has a list on her phone for every new idea that pops into her head. And she just writes them down and parks it there because her husband, he's also a 9, gets so annoyed with every new idea she has. That it's going to be this next big thing in her life. So she has learned, okay, I'm just going to park it here on my phone and I'm not going to share every idea that I have. So that's a good one for 7s.
That is good. It's there. It's recorded if you need to go back to it.
Exactly. And you can see if the next day you're still interested in that, because a lot of times you will have gone on to the next thing. You wouldn't be excited about that one anymore. Notice your tendency to find the silver lining in the clouds. Practice the opposite of finding the clouds in the silver lining. So 7s do not like negative feelings or emotions. And well, it is like it's like the opposite of Debbie Downer. They will always find a way to reframe things and make things cheerful and happy. But sometimes that means they are avoiding pain and suffering and mourning and loss that are actually important to be going through. And so not always trying to reframe everything is important for a 7. And then welcome negative feedback and criticism.
That's tough for anyone, right?
Everybody, but 7s in particular, yes. So how can you support the 7s in your life? Encourage the 7 to make deep commitments, accept pain as well as pleasure in life, and appreciate the value and worth of all others. Okay, 8s, the protector. This is me. The protector believes you must be strong and powerful to assure protection and regard in a tough world. Consequently, protectors seek justice and are direct, strong, and action-oriented, but also can be overly impactful, excessive, and sometimes impulsive. That is true. Okay, what are some things that we can do to work on this? Notice and moderate your intensity, excess, and impact. Last year, my word, do you have a word for the year? Do you typically do that? What was your word for this past year?
This past year, it was trust.
Trust. Okay.
Yeah.
I was focusing on moderation. I don't do anything with moderation. So that was a big learning curve for me this year. And that's what actually started my meditation and yoga practice, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, finding ways to kind of rein that stuff in. Okay. Identify feelings other than anger. Like I said, I have anger a lot. I can identify that one and anxiety. But learning to identify feelings other than anger is helpful for an 8. And then this is a hard one too. Practice doing things someone else's way. Start small at first. This is an argument that my husband and I get into quite often. Is he says, just because I'm not doing it your way does not mean that it's not a good way. And so that's something I have to tell myself all the time. Just because he doesn't load the dishwasher the way I want him to load the dishwasher doesn't mean that the dishes won't get clean. So yeah, that's a good one for me. This one, okay. This one's going to get a little deep. Encourage the protector to accept his or her own vulnerability and distinguish it from weakness and reduce excessive and impulsive behavior. So one of the biggest takeaways from my time at the Narrative Enneagram program was I kept saying, everybody says that 8s have a hard time with vulnerability. I'm like, I don't have a problem with that. Like, I'll tell you anything you want to know. Like, I'll tell you my whole life story. And they looked at me and they said, Julie, that's not vulnerability. That's transparency. And I was like, oh, okay. So what I have been considering vulnerability is really transparency. And those are two different things. So I've been doing a lot of exploring to see, okay, what does it look like for me to be vulnerable? Okay, and last but not least, 9, the mediator. The mediator believes that to be loved and valued, you must blend in and go along to get along. Consequently, mediators seek harmony and are comfortable and steady, but they can also be self-forgetting, conflict avoidant, and sometimes stubborn. So yep. I didn't quite understand what self-forgetting means. As a 9, do you know what that means, or do you identify with that?
My interpretation of it in my own life has been when my kids were little, I was completely focused on them, their needs, and I think a lot of moms are like that, but maybe for me it was even more intense. And then when they got a little bit older and I had a little bit of free time just to kind of do what I wanted, I was like, what do I like?
Yes, that is exactly it.
I don't remember my interests. I don't remember what kind of music I like to listen to.
Yes,
so I think
completely it.
That's how it was for me. And I think that since I've been learning about the Enneagram and since I've been listening to podcasts because they're so inspirational, I've been kind of moving out of that, I hope.
And learning to identify what it is that you want in the moment.
Right.
Good.
Right. Yeah.
Good job, Johanna. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few more things to work on here as well. This will kind of go along with what you just mentioned. Reclaim a separate self and voice. Take a personal position on issues. Welcome discomfort and conflict. How do you handle conflict?
Oh, I feel like in my home, it's easier.
Uh-huh.
I'm more comfortable. Maybe I'm moving to that 3
Yes.
and conflict is not such a big issue. But with people outside of my house, I really move away from it. There was an instance at my gym where I was getting on a treadmill and another woman was getting on a treadmill, and we were in this team activity. And I'm like, well, this is where my team, we're on number 10. And she was like, well, I'm on number 10. And she ended up moving on, but she was really upset about it. And I can still feel like icky about that.
Yes.
It was months ago and it's so silly. But yeah.
Yeah.
I do not care for conflict or tension.
Yep. And so one of the things that they would tell us to do, that I'll encourage you to do, not right now, but at another time, is kind of take a meditative posture. So you could be sitting on the floor, sitting on your chair with your feet on the ground. Take a few deep breaths and allow that feeling, like imagine that interaction again in your body. Notice where you are feeling those things. So is it in your heart? Is it in your chest? Is it in your gut? Is it in your fingers, in your arms? Like allow your body to feel those things and then take a few cleansing breaths and then release them and see if that helps you to process through that emotion.
Okay, that's good.
Okay?
Yeah.
Try that out. Let me know how it works. Notice feelings that precede your attention shifting to substitutes. So like food or TV or podcasts or just like how you're trying to kind of disassociate with this. Notice what those feelings are every time you start to move into that. And then remember that your self-worth is self-defined. No one else can define you. Okay. How can we help the 9s in our life? Provide the 9 with a supportive environment for determining priorities, taking action, and experiencing anger. Like it's okay for you to release that anger. We can take it. We can handle it. So those are some strategies for development for this new year to just kind of start noticing when those things pop up and then acknowledging them. There's always power in the pause. So when you see that coming up, pause, and then you can choose to respond differently to that situation.
Thank you for sharing those. And I think the more that you get into this work and the more you learn about this, the easier it is to identify those moments when you realize, oh, I do need to take a pause here.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed the most after my time in Colorado was I didn't ever see myself moving into that stressful, that 5. I didn't really identify with that much. It seemed weird to me. But after I got to witness a 5 and like hear from her experience, I recognized how much of a 5 I do go in stress. So you'll start to see them more pop up as you start to identify them in your own life.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about just how it has impacted you personally? I know when we spoke before, you talked about in your marriage. Do you mind sharing about that?
Yeah.
I think that was really powerful.
It was. So as I've referenced, I'm an 8. My husband is a 4. He leads with 4. And when we first read on the Enneagram Institute, you can go to like it says learn more and you can go to relationships. We just cracked up because it said like the 8 and 4 is probably the most violent, I think it says violent pairing of the two. Because
that's a strong word.
I know it is. We started dying laughing because we are just like at each other all the time because both 8s and 4s want control and we want it for different reasons and we want it in different ways. And I, for years, like except for the past 2 years, always thought that my husband was depressed because he was just melancholy all the time. And what the 4 allowed me to realize is like, oh, he likes being that way. Like he likes sitting in those feelings. And it allowed me to see some of the things that he had been saying about me that I didn't want to recognize myself, that I have high expectations and that he feels like sometimes he can't live up to those expectations. And so by giving us a common language and helping us to see that these are not things that are just Colin or just Julie, that these are a part of a larger whole, it was able to give us more grace and patience with each other. And I was able to say, and I don't say this out loud to him, but I say, oh, he's just being a 4 right now. Like this is the 4-ness coming out.
It's nothing personally against you.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it saved our marriage. I mean, we were not in a great place. We've struggled throughout our marriage, but we were in a really bad place at that point in time. And this has, like I said, given us the language and the space and the patience and the grace for each other that other things in the past have not been able to do for us. I mean, we've been in counseling for years. We've read lots of other marriage books, but like being able to understand each other in this way, I don't know, it clicked for us. I hope it clicks for others as well. But being able to have that distance and that separation from the personal to the type has just made a world of difference for us. And so that's a bit why I'm so passionate about it and why I love it so much. And I'm always sharing it with others. Is because it's made such a difference. It's made such a difference. It's made a difference in my relationships, not only with my husband, but with my coworkers, with my friends, with individuals I meet. I can I can tell when I walk up and meet somebody, I'm like, oh, that person is this. And I mean, I don't know that for sure. Obviously, I don't know the inner workings of their mind. I don't know what motivates them, but I have a pretty good idea, and it can help shape the way that I interact with someone to make it in the most positive light possible. It's been a great tool.
I agree. And I think that you can move toward health in your number. I always want to be the best version of myself possible.
Yep.
So that's a great part of it. And then also, like you mentioned, just improving relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Julie, is there anything else Enneagram related that we should know?
A lot of people ask me, okay, what book should I be reading if I want to learn more? I created an Amazon wish list, which is just all of the books that I've purchased so far so that people can have easy access to it and just see which one might be a best fit for them.
Okay, we'll definitely link to that and any other resources that are pointing people in the right direction on this. Julie, I ask all my guests for their favorite 5.
Yes.
Can you tell me?
I love this.
5 things that you're wearing or doing or eating right now that are your favorites.
Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 apps. Well, one is an app and one is a YouTube channel, but I told you my word for this past year was moderation. Yeah. And I have been trying to incorporate some practices into my life that kind of line up with what I'm learning about the Enneagram. And one of them is meditation. And so I started using the Headspace app. Are you familiar with Headspace?
I'm not.
Well, you can download a free trial and use it. I think it's like a 7 to 10 day trial. But basically, they teach you the basics of meditation. And then once you learn that, they have a bunch of different courses or whatever you want to call them for like meditation for anxiety, meditation for inspiration, they just have a bunch of different courses that you could do.
Meditation for 9s with tension.
Exactly. I had always been intrigued by meditation, but I didn't really know what to do. And that's why I love apps. I mean, they make things so easy.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, so look into Headspace. The other one that I love is Yoga with Adriene. Adriene has a YouTube channel that has free yoga practice. And I've always wanted to do yoga. However, being a working mom, I have not been able to really find classes that line up with my schedule of my commute, my lunch hour, my,
time
all
is
these
tight.
Different things. It's just tight. And so what I can do is I can go to our gym here on campus and pull up Adriene on my YouTube, on my phone, and then do anywhere from like a 15 to 30 minute yoga practice. And she's amazing. I love her. I love her personality. She's such a great teacher. And I think that's part of it. Even if you don't have any yoga experience, like she teaches for where people are in their journey and gives lots of, like, okay, if you can't do this, lots of alternative options. And so that is another thing. All of these practices, they're telling you get into your body, cultivating awareness. So I've been doing meditation and yoga to do that.
I have done some YouTube yoga, but not with Adrienne, so I'll have to check her out.
Yes, look into
Yeah.
her. She's great. She's based out of Austin, Texas. I really like her a lot. She's funny. Okay, so other working mom thing that I found this year that I love is the Infinite Style program through Ann Taylor. This popped up on like a Facebook ad, and I thought it sounded too good to be true, but so far it has been amazing. So for $99 a month, you can rent clothes from Ann Taylor. Here in the Career Center, we have to dress, we have a professional dress code. And I, one, hate investing in work clothes because they're so expensive. I can't afford anything at Ann Taylor. And so this program allows me to wear all these great clothes for $99. So you rent them 3 at a time and you get to pick them. That's the other thing that I like about this. You know me, I'm an 8. I like control. Some of those other like Stitch Fix, I tried that, but like,
you don't know what you're going to get.
You don't know what you're going to get. And then you have to pay $20 and I'm just I don't mind investing in clothes, but I don't want to just throw $20 away.
That also gives you a really nice rotation.
Exactly.
You're always in something different.
I always get to wear something new, and it's easy to budget for. I can say, this is $99 and this is what I'm going to spend. And it's free shipping. They do all the dry cleaning for you. Like you don't have to dry clean anything. That's another thing. Dress clothes usually have to be dry cleaned, and you can take that out of your budget now. And I love it. You just get to try so many different things that I would never be able to buy, or I may not even be willing to try because it's like, oh, if I spend, this much money on this, I'm going to need to wear it a lot to get my, wear's worth.
What if you really like something? Can you keep it?
You can, and then they give it to you at a highly discounted rate.
That's nice.
If you're interested in look at my not my YouTube. I don't have YouTube. Look at my Instagram. I started doing a fun thing of working mom fashion just as a fun outlet. So
your feed is super cute.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Very stylish.
So the majority of this stuff is just Ann Taylor. So it's all, and then I mix it in with pieces I already have. So if you're looking for a way to spice up your wardrobe, I highly recommend that. And I do have a link on that Instagram feed. You can get like a $25 off coupon for your first one, which is how I got started.
Great.
So that's 3, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Since we love podcasts, I want to introduce you to one that maybe you haven't heard of yet, and that is Second Life with Hillary Kerr. And what she does, she interviews women who are in the second half of their career and have started something or become the top of their whatever field it is, and they didn't start in that area. So it'd be like if we started in higher ed, but then we became these uber famous podcasters, she would interview us about, the podcast and how we came to this point.
Okay. That sounds super interesting.
Oh my gosh. She does such a great job. And the women that she has on there are very fascinating. It's really cool. So I highly recommend that one as well. And then last but not least, this is more of something that I use. I use this all the time. This is AP24 toothpaste. It's something that I ended up selling because I like it so much, but it is, I know you like kind of cleaner products, and this is one of the things that attracted me to this too. It's a whitening toothpaste that doesn't have bleach or peroxide in it. If you've ever used strips or trays before, they're usually bleaching the color of your teeth. Mm-hmm. And it is painful, and it can bring a lot of sensitivity, and it's also just not something great you want to be putting in your body every day. So this stuff, it is more of, it's just cleaning off the surface stains. So if you have a lot of coffee or tea or red wine, it's worked well for people who use tobacco. It will help clean off that surface level stains at a better rate than a lot of any other whitening toothpaste I've tried before. And it has some patented ingredients in it. They're polyoximers. They basically cover the surface of your teeth, so it prevents the stains from coming back.
Oh, nice.
You can continue to drink coffee, but your teeth are not going to go back to that stained color. So that's another link that I have on my Instagram page if people are interested in learning more about that.
Great to know. Thank you for those 5.
Yes.
All right. Well, Julie, thank you so much for coming on and talking about the Enneagram, giving us an insight into the numbers and how we can move toward health, which I think is what everyone really wants to do.
Yes. I'm so glad that you asked me. Thank you so much. It was such an honor to be on here, and I hope that people were able to learn something new, and are ready to hit the ground running in the new year.
Yeah. Happy 2020 to you.
Yes. Happy 2020 to you.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Julie. I love her energy and her passion for the Enneagram. I hope she inspired you to learn more about it for yourself and to take steps to move toward health in your number. And like Julie shared, this tool can help you change your relationships too, all for the better. Find Julie on Instagram at Julie K. Short and check out her podcast, Momnesia. Also, be sure to find me on Instagram at Girls Talking Life. Friends, don't let the conversation stop when the show is over. Share your stories and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. I'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in.